Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's been a while since we saw anything from my Axial SCX24 project, and it's for good reason. We've been messing around with a whole bunch of other projects. You know, I just can't seem to focus on one thing at a time, but I didn't just leave this thing on the back burner. I have been working on it a little bit. I think the last time we saw the body, it was just all glued together, and well, now it's all straight and primed and almost ready for paint, really. I didn't really get much footage on the process of going through and straightening out this body, doing the body work and priming it, but I did get a few images during the process so that I could kind of go through and talk about what I did and explain it to you guys. Obviously, the first thing I did after sanding it was give it a nice coat of primer, a heavy coat of filler sandable primer. I did a quick once-over sand with that, and then I actually sprayed on a dust coat of black. Now, this could be any color. You just want a different color than your primer. What this does is, after I start sanding, again, blocking the body out with a straight block or something to give you a nice smooth surface, you can see the low spots in the body. Wherever that black paint is left over, you can see where it's low and where you may need some more filler. I did the entire body like this and had a whole bunch of little low spots, basically where the seams of the different parts of the 3D print were. So I would go in and add some filler. You can see the red filler there. It's not Bondo, which would be used in normal auto body work. This is just a skim putty, really, because there wasn't much to fill. This stuff dries pretty quickly, so I could get right back to sanding. So I'd add a little bit on, sand it smooth, throw some more primer on, throw a little more black on, and repeat the process until I got a nice smooth body. I think I only went through and primed and blocked it out probably 3 times to get to this point. And at this point, it's actually ready for paint. I'd probably water sand it a little bit just to get a little smoother surface. But other than that, it's ready for paint. And I think I have an idea on a color, but I can't actually paint it just yet because if you remember right, when I started this project, I had something else that needed to be done. We are making a camper trailer to pull behind my Chevy Blazer SCX24. And to do that, I printed out another section of the rear. This is just 3 parts. And we're gonna end up cutting this top off. We're gonna build a trailer. And this will be kind of like a pop-up tent style, I guess, camper. I plan on making a lid with kind of like the tent fabric around it and everything that'll hinge up and all of that. So I got this section printed up and glued up, and we're gonna have to go through and do the same body work on this, but today I wanted to focus on building the trailer. Obviously, all of this isn't pretty right now, but we're gonna clean that up with some styrene later. We have to close in the front and all of that too. We're gonna get these out of the way. What I wanna do is build the trailer right now. I spent a good bit of time in Fusion 360 designing this trailer. I wanted it to work well with some of the old SCX24 parts. I'm using the original wheels and tires, as well as the original shocks. And I also wanted some good suspension. I mean, it's a crawler, so I wanna be able to like crawl over things, climb things and all of that, and the trailer followed me around. Did a little research on kind of off-road campers and trailer suspension and stuff like that, and I think I came up with something pretty cool. So even a pretty unique hitch for the truck itself. So here's all the 3D printed parts. Let's start throwing them together. For the trailer part itself, I want to talk about it a little more. This is just a tube frame, I guess, trailer that's all 3D printed. I have 2 swing arms here. These go on the underside. I already did a little test fit of this, so it's together already, but what I have is 2 ball bearings. I believe these are from the Micro Open RC F1 car that I built years ago. And they fit inside of this tube here. I have a 3D printed hex and just a screw running through them so that I can tighten this up like this. For all of this to work, I know this is kind of backwards, but I actually have to put the wheels on before. So we're gonna pop our wheel on and just start tightening. I don't want it all the way tight, but we're gonna start off tightening it all the way. I'm gonna throw a nut on. So now that it's all the way tight, it actually wouldn't rotate. What I'm gonna do is just back this off about a half a turn and a little more than that. You can see that arm swing now, and now we have a spinning tire. Works well, there's no slacking or nothing like that. Next up, we can take this and actually install it on the trailer itself. I have an inset piece on the outside here that uses a cap screw. Just gonna slide in there. You can see it's free sliding here, so this screw acts as my pivot. And same thing with these, I'm gonna tighten it all the way, but then you're gonna see that it binds up. So I'm gonna loosen it just until it's free moving. Another quarter, yeah, that's better. See how we're free moving there now? Last thing to do is the shock. This is the original SCX24 shocks. I did not have the springs for them anymore, so I took the black springs off of those hot racing shocks that are on the truck itself and installed them on there. They're a little long, and I'm not sure if they're gonna be the correct spring rate when I get the weight of the camper on it, so we might have to change these out later on. But for now, this works well. And now that's one side. Suspension works nice. We'll throw together the other side now. And that's the trailer all finished up. I'm pretty happy with that. I know a lot of you are probably wondering how this hitch setup works now, so let's get into that. So you saw me actually install the hitch on the truck itself. I think it's pretty sturdy. It has 2 screw points on each side, and then there's just 2 screws in the back to hold this tongue, I guess you can call it, out. You can see this little nub on the end, and maybe you'll understand what I'm doing here. I actually took an old SCX24 drive shaft and popped the ball joint out of the shaft part of it. So all I have is the receiver, I guess, part here. I actually have this printed where it slides straight on, and I can reinstall the screw just like I would be mounting it to an axle. And now I have a ball joint, a universal joint back here. 3D printing a receiver for that universal joint proved to be kind of iffy, I guess. I was worried about bending parts and cracking things. So you can see I have half of it printed on the tongue of the trailer. And that actually just slides in to one half. This part was fun to print. It's a very tiny tab, which is the other half of the universal joint. Try to get you as close as I can in here so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe a little more light. This tab now has a screw that runs through it. But our universal joint, ball joint, whatever you want to call it, slides in and gets clamped in between the 2 parts. The screw cinches it all down. And now I have a trailer and a hitch that'll go wherever I want it, and it won't come off. I can turn left and right. I can even go over some pretty steep inclines, and it'll still stay hooked up. Pretty proud and happy with this design, actually. The suspension on the trailer works well. Like I said, we may have to tune those spring rates, but now it's time to get that camper body mounted here. I need to build a styrene inner structure, I guess with inner fenders and a floor. That way we can glue the trailer to it. I'm not the best with styrene work, so I'm not gonna try to kid anybody on this. So let's do a little time lapse maybe of me building the floor structure and inner fenders of what will be my camper. Well, I'm gonna have to apologize because I kind of got into the build there and didn't notice my battery had died on the camera. And well, I built the floor pan and the inner fenders for the camper, and I don't think I got much of that on video at all. Simple enough though, the floor pan is gonna sit inside of there, and then I just built these inner fenders. You can basically see how they're built with 4 strips of styrene just glued together. I did a little rough sanding, but you actually won't see this part, you'll see the inside, so we might have to shape that up a bit. These are gonna glue in here, but I actually want to get the floor pan in first. That way, if I need to shape these anymore to fit the inside of the body, we can, and I can do those separately. So I'm gonna slide this in. I actually have some marks on the inside of the body where it has to go at, and it's gonna sit flush with this cutout I made in the front where the chassis sits. I'm gonna take a little piece of tape just to get that front piece where I know it'll be where it has to go. And then now the rest will be lining up the back, making sure it's parallel, sitting with my marks. It's actually in a really good spot right there. So I'm gonna tack in the back. I say tack in like I'm welding it or something, but I'm gonna use a little super glue and put a little dot in the back here to hold that in place. And as for the back, I think that's good. The front will be really easy because it has to just line up with my part like I said here. And I think I'm gonna run a bead of glue on the inside on the front. We definitely got some shaping to do on the other side there. You really won't see much of it, but the little bit you will see, I do want to clean up a little. After I clean that up though, or maybe even before, it'll be time to finally put the pieces together. I'll be able to glue the frame to the camper shell itself. Looking at it next to the truck, it looks like I'm going to need to shorten those springs on the back a little bit, lower that ride height a little. We may have to mess with the suspension on the truck as well, but we're moving along pretty well here. I'm liking how it's looking. Just gonna have to go through and build that top next. So I did go ahead and cut those back springs down just to drop it down a little. It looks like it would need to go a little more. I may mess around with the springs on the truck because you can see if I lift up on the body, it kind of levels itself out. But the other thing is I still need to build the top, and I know that's gonna add a little weight, so I don't want to cut any more just yet. I want to get that top built. Not sure if we're gonna get the hinge built and everything today, as I'm seeing this video is already gonna end up pretty long, but I want to get that cover, that pop-up top built. Actually gonna use something else other than styrene or 3D printed parts. I want to be able to shape it and mold it so it fits around this body really well, and also has a nice curve to it. So I want something a little thicker than the styrene. I have this stuff here, which I don't remember the exact name of. It's a expanded PVC board, basically. I used this way long ago when I tried building a scale garage. That never came to be, but I still have a good bit of it left. It's pretty thick, it's easy to work with, it'll glue together well, and it sands pretty well too, being that it's a PVC foam board type, so I ought to be able to get some really nice curves with it. We're gonna hopefully keep the camera running this time. I'm not really sure exactly what I'm doing with this yet, so I'm just gonna put up a little time lapse and see how this turns out. Hopefully we can get it up there, and probably not mounted today like I said, but I want to get it up there and finished off. That way, last thing we'll have to do is add the hinge and the netting or tent material, whatever you want to call it, and paint it up. I obviously still have a whole lot of sanding left to do. I just put one coat of primer on it and started filling out a couple of spots. This thing's not going to get painted in this video, so I really want to just finish up the camper. That way in the next video we could focus on painting and wrapping this up. To finish off the camper, build wise, I need to add a hinge for the top. You can see I started doing that here just to test out what I wanted to do. I took some of this styrene rod and I'm using a paper clip as my pin, so I found one of the smallest drill bits I had and very carefully tried to drill out the center of the styrene rod. Was not fun at all, but ended up coming up with a couple little pieces here. You can see I have this side glued on already, and my paper clip is just gonna sit inside of here. Obviously I'll trim these and glue the ends after, and it should hinge, so I want to get the other side glued on, that way I can take this tape off and see how this will work. Just like that, we have a functioning camper, even a pop top. I still need to go through and make the actual tent part, I guess, the pop-up part of this. That'll be made out of fabric or something. But for this video, I wanted to just complete the trailer, get the mechanism working, all the suspension working and everything, and get it hooked up to the truck. You can see I still need to play around with the truck suspension a little bit to kind of level that trailer out. I'm not sure if I need to lift up on the back of the truck or lower the camper a bit. You can see if I add some weight on it, it levels the truck out. Maybe even lower the front a bit. We're gonna play around with that though over the next couple of days. In the next video you see, we'll be painting this thing up and hopefully completely finishing it off. I know this project's been on the back burner for a while, but it's been really fun working on this camper and designing the chassis around it with the suspension. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, how you think this thing's turning out. I'm really excited to see it finished, so I'll be working on it non-stop. It's time to clear out some projects to get some other projects on the workbench soon. So make sure to subscribe if you want to see this thing finished. Leave a like if you're thinking it's coming out as good as I am, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think color wise. What should I go with? What kind of scale detail should I add? How should I build out this camper the rest of the way? I have a few ideas, but interested to know what you guys think in the comments down below. And as always, thanks again for watching. Peace.